For those of you who might be new to my channel or who may not have seen my other videos about my surgery, I've been documenting my recovery from a midfoot fusion and bone graft for a Lisfranc dislocation. My surgery was on July 30th, 2024, and this video is about my second, third, and fourth weeks of recovery after my surgery. I am hoping that documenting each week of recovery might help others with similar injuries and surgeries know what to expect and also maybe feel less alone in their recovery. Thursday, August 8th, 2024 was day 9 after my surgery. My husband Matt ordered the iWalk online because I was really struggling with going up the stairs with my crutches being completely non-weight bearing, and there had been a couple of times that I had slipped a little and ended up putting some weight on my foot trying to catch myself so that I wouldn't fall down the stairs, and that would make my foot swell up and be very painful for hours afterwards. The iWalk unfortunately was not going to be arriving for a few days, but we were okay with it because it was completely out in all of the stores near us, and it was going to help out so much with being able to move around in general. I was also really excited with it helping not just with the stairs, but also possibly with being able to use it outside sometimes. Friday, August 9th, 2024, day 10 after the surgery, I was starting to get a lot of tingling and pins and needles feelings in my foot and ankle. This was also the first day that I was finally starting to get some feeling in my foot other than pain and pressure. I still couldn't feel much, but my lower leg, foot, and ankle were finally starting to feel a little bit more like a part of my body again instead of being a completely foreign object from the knee down. I also got some breaks from the constant pain that I had been getting since the surgery. The breaks in pain wouldn't last more than about 20 minutes at a time, but it was such a relief. I did have a few times during the day that I almost needed a prescription painkiller because the pain would come back pretty strongly, but it would calm down within about 15 minutes. It did end up taking half a painkiller at night because the pain would get pretty bad in the evenings, but that was the only time that day that I needed a prescription painkiller. Saturday, August 10th, 2024, day 11 after the surgery, we received the iWalk from Amazon that day. Matt put it together for me and figured out the correct height to have it at and watched the YouTube tutorials with me to figure out how to practice walking with it. It did take a lot of getting used to, but it made going up the stairs so much easier. Unfortunately, the railing at our house was not on the correct side of the stairs for me to use the iWalk going down the stairs with it, but it was fine since I could slide down the stairs with relative ease, and it was mainly going up the stairs that I was having the most difficulty with at this point. I was so happy to have gotten the iWalk, and I was so excited to keep practicing using it. Sunday, August 11th, 2024, day 12 after the surgery. The swelling in my lower leg was finally going down. I had gotten a lot of swelling in my ankle and up to my knee that my doctor had said was normal. I had gotten a lot of even swelling up to the knee. I was getting more feeling in my lower leg, and I could feel the top of my walking boot brushing against my leg when I was moving around, which was not something I could feel before. The pain was continuing to be more manageable, and one of my best friends, Bethany, and her husband came over for dinner. They were the first of my friends to come over since my surgery, and they brought over a dinner that Jim had made. It was a truly fantastic dinner, and it was great getting to see them for a bit. I was able to sit at the dining room table for the first time since my surgery with my foot up on a chair. At the time, I still had to keep my foot up for most of the day. I believe the doctor had recommended at least 23 hours a day for the first 8 to 9 weeks after the surgery. I did feel pretty exhausted after hanging out with them for a couple hours, but it meant so much to me that they took the time to make us a dinner and bring it over and come to check on me after the surgery. Sunday, August 12th, 2024, day 13 after my surgery. My foot and ankle pain was continuing to be tolerable without prescription painkillers, although I noticed it would get considerably worse after being up and moving for more than just a couple minutes at a time. Even though my energy levels were up, I needed to be careful not to overdo movement because my foot, especially my big toe and that whole side of the foot, would become easily aggravated. I had to limit myself to being up for absolutely no more than 10 minutes at a time with the crutches or knee scooter, or else my foot and ankle would take a very long time to stop hurting, typically at least a half hour. Now that I hadn't been to the gym in exactly 2 weeks, I noticed that I was starting to really have trouble sitting still and was really looking forward to being able to leave the house again. My surgeon had told me that I should not leave my house until I had gotten the stitches out. That was not going to be for a couple more days. And so for the time being, going outside on the back porch was what I was limited to, as well as getting some movement around the house. And and that was helping some. I was able to move around the house a bit more easily using the knee scooter and the iWalk, and I was feeling more stable. I was getting some pain in my foot that was very intense and would start very suddenly and would feel like stabbing, shooting, and burning pain, but it would go away within about 20 minutes. I had to continue keeping my foot elevated pretty much all the time and was continuing to ice my foot about 4 to 7 times a day. Tuesday, August 13th, 2024, day 14 after my surgery. I was getting more sensation in my foot and lower leg. By the end of the day, I was able to feel some difference in textures in my foot. It was feeling like 70% of the feeling was coming back, and I was starting to realize that my foot had been in much worse shape before the surgery than I had realized. I realized that I had not had complete feeling in my foot and lower leg for at least a month before the surgery, so it was great, but also a little weird to be getting feeling back. Wednesday, August 14th, 2024, day 15 after the surgery. This was the day I was scheduled to get my stitches out. The stitches had been really itchy and tight for the past 2 weeks, so I'd been really looking forward to getting them out. I was really excited to be leaving the house for the first time in 2 weeks. It was a really nice day out, which made the drive to the doctor's office very relaxing. I finally got to have the bandage taken off my foot, and it looked a lot better than I thought it would. Even the physician's assistant was surprised at how well my foot was healing. I was asked if I wanted to put my walking boot back on to go to the x-ray room or if I felt comfortable using my crutches without the walking boot, and I remember immediately feeling very panicked, imagining moving around without any protection around my foot. I said I preferred to put the walking boot back on, so the health professional started to slide my foot back into the walking boot, and I felt a wave of nausea just hit me immediately as soon as my bare foot touched the liner inside my boot. The health professional said that she was going to get the physician's assistant so I could get my x-rays done, and she left the room. Matt asked me if I was doing okay, and I told him something about the top of my boot putting too much pressure on my foot, and I don't remember much after that, other than hearing a loud whirring noise and Matt's hands on either side of my head and my head tilting back to rest against the wall behind me while I was sitting in my chair. Next thing I knew, there were 5 healthcare professionals surrounding me, and one of them was holding a sanitizer wipe under my nose. He told me to hold it and would occasionally tell me to pass it from one hand to the other. Turns out I'd had a severe panic attack in addition to having had very low blood sugar from forgetting to eat for 14 hours because I hadn't been hungry for breakfast that morning and had forgotten to eat anything at all. I had to sit for a while, and I was given crackers and apple juice to help raise my blood sugar. When I was ready to move, I was taken to the x-ray room in a wheelchair. My x-rays showed that the bones were starting to fuse, and I got the stitches out. It ended up being less painful than I thought it would be to have the stitches taken out. I had steri strips put over where the stitches used to be. Matt asked to have my foot rewrapped in an ace bandage because we had forgotten to bring a sock from home to put over my foot, and my foot was not feeling so great after losing the support of all of the bandaging that it used to have. Even after all of the activity, it felt great to have the stitches out, and Matt had stayed very calm in what was for us a very stressful situation. He had been able to open the door of the room that we were in after making sure that I was safe in my chair during the panic attack to get the attention of medical staff for help. After we got home, my mom was able to come for a couple of hours in the afternoon while Matt was working in the afternoon to help keep me company. That was really helpful because it helped Matt feel safer having her around while he was focused on work, and it also helped me feel a lot better having my mom around. Thursday, August 15th, 2024, day 16 after the surgery. I could not get my foot wet for 48 hours after the stitches came out, so I still needed to shower with a bag over my foot that night. I showered for the first time with my boot off and used a shower cover that I had bought off of Amazon, which unfortunately did not fit over the walking boot but did work perfectly for showering with the ace bandage on. It kept my foot very dry and was super easy to put on and take off. My foot felt much better than the day before now that the stitches were out and that I was getting used to my foot having more feeling. Being able to feel the inside of the walking boot wasn't nearly as overwhelming as when the bandaging had been initially taken off at the doctor's office, and my foot and ankle were beginning to get more used to having to support themselves more. Friday, August 16th, 2024, day 17 after the surgery. I was getting more feeling in my toes that day. I was still getting periods of stabbing, burning, and shooting pain, but I was getting periods of less pain as well. Everything felt like it was improving, but was still having difficulty with being non-weight bearing and just not being able to leave the house easily. Saturday, August 17th, 2024, 2024, day 18 after my surgery. I had my 40th birthday party, which was amazing. Matt and my family organized a wonderful birthday party at our home, and everyone I invited was able to make it. I was exhausted by the end of the day, but I was so happy and felt so surrounded by love. Everyone helped make the day extra special to make the fact that I couldn't walk for my milestone birthday less noticeable, and I ended up having the best day. And Helen, my sister who works as a nurse, was able to get all of the new bandaging off of my foot. It did feel a bit uncomfortable at first for a minute or two, but it helped a lot having her take off the bandages slowly and to ice it immediately after taking everything off. The swelling and bruising was reduced compared to 3 days earlier when the stitches had come out, and Helen gave detailed instructions on how to clean my foot around the steri strips. She also gave me wash to use for the cleaning, which ended up being a really gentle feeling solution to use. It felt weird getting my foot wet that night after avoiding getting it wet for 2.5 weeks, but cleaning it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. Sunday, August 18th, 2024, day 19 after my surgery. This was the actual day of my birthday, and Matt and I celebrated by going to the gym for the first time since my surgery. I was only able to stay for about 20 minutes, but it felt great to be back. It was also really exciting being out of the house for something that was not a doctor's appointment. My foot felt very tingly towards the end of the workout, and it felt tight afterwards, so I spent a good amount of time icing it and kept it elevated for the rest of the day. Wednesday, August 21st, 2024, day 22 after the surgery. It was starting to feel like a really long time not to be able to do much around the house. I am really lucky to have a husband who was so happy and willing to do so much for me, and I was starting to be able to do little things around the house like helping wash the dishes and help do some meal prep like cutting vegetables, but Matt was worried about letting me do too much. I was also worried about him as well though, because he was working full-time in addition to taking care of me and also being on the tail end of recovering from emergency gallbladder surgery on June 30th. So we had been having a pretty rough summer. I was also really missing the ability to do things for myself and having to be so dependent on Matt and the rest of my family for such an extended period of time, and it was starting to really feel like a lot to me. I knew I was going to be non-weight bearing on my foot for at least 7 weeks, and it was starting to feel like that was going to be forever. Tasks that used to be simple, like getting a glass of water or going to the bathroom, took 2 or 3 times longer than they used to, and it took a lot more energy out of me than it felt like it should to do everything on crutches and the knee scooter. The effort it took to do small things was starting to wear on me, and this was to the point of the surgery recovery that it was starting to really become overwhelming. Matt and my family helped me remember to take it one day at a time whenever I would get too discouraged about how much longer the recovery would take. And that was something that I would have to keep telling myself out loud, just as a reminder to myself very often every day. Thursday, August 22nd, 2024, day 23 after the surgery. My foot and ankle were feeling more sore because I'd been making more of an effort to do steps on a semi-hourly basis. There was also some pulling around the scar where the steri strips had been placed where the stitches used to be. The steri strips had been placed in place of the stitches on August 14th, and they really felt like they were pulling on the scar area. Since the surgery, I had noticed that it had been more difficult for me to fully wake up in the mornings. I seemed to be in a brain fog until about 30 to 45 minutes until I had finished my morning coffee. My foot was dry, but I had to wait until the stitches had been removed for 2 full weeks before putting the lotion on my foot. Since the stitches had been removed on August 14th, that meant that I had to wait until August 28th. Matt needed to pick up a few things from the grocery store, so I went with him and waited in the car so I could have my foot elevated in the car, and then we went to the gym. This workout was a bit easier than the last time, but I bumped my foot pretty hard when taking off the iWalk after getting into the house, and that gave me some anxiety. It didn't swell up or give me any sharp pains during the rest of the day, but it did feel much more sore afterwards. Friday, August 23rd, 2024, day 24 after the surgery. I was getting a burning feeling along the entire left side of my foot that day, as well as into my ankle. The area where the hardware had been installed in my midfoot was particularly sensitive. My foot started feeling better in the evening with a lot of icing and elevation after all of yesterday's activities. I noticed that whenever I did anything outside of the house, I typically had increased pain in my foot, ankle, and lower leg for about a day after. Saturday, August 24th, 2024, day 25 after the surgery. My mom came to pick me up so I could spend the afternoon with my family at my parents' house. On the way, my mom and I stopped by a little cupcake store and I used the iWalk. When we got to my parents' house, my dad and my sister Sophie were working on fixing up some of their bikes. They had set up a lawn chair for me to use and I was able to elevate my foot and ice it while being outside with them. When we were all ready to go inside, I got up the hill in the backyard using the iWalk with my mom's help, which was not an easy feat because the hill is a bit steep, but I did it. Sophie made us a really good dinner and Matt came to hang out with us all for a bit. He had been hanging out with his friends, but he came out to spend some of the evening with us. I practiced using my iWalk in the backyard for a bit when I was ready for some more movement. This was the first day since my surgery that I was out of the house for such an extended period of time. Towards the end of the day, my foot did start feeling really tight, especially around the scar area. The steri strips, which still weren't coming off, were really pulling on the scar area, and the arch of my foot was also really hurting. At this point, I had had the steri strips on since August 14th, so 10 days. Using an ice pack really helped a lot. After Matt drove us home, I used an ice pack again while elevating my foot. I had a lot of sharp stabbing pains that night. My foot and ankle felt like they were burning. So I did end up needing a painkiller that night for the first time in a while because the pain did not let up for over an hour, despite having kept my foot elevated for most of the day at my parents' house. Sunday, August 25th, 2024, day 26 after my surgery. Matt and I went back to my parents' house to celebrate my sister and Helen's birthday. We had a really fun afternoon celebrating together as a family and we stayed there for close to 5 hours, but my foot hurt quite a bit towards the end of the day. I was feeling shooting and stabbing pains again, and when Matt and I got home, my foot was considerably swollen and very sore despite keeping it elevated all day, so I iced it as soon as we got home. I had noticed increased pain all day, possibly because I'd been more active. I really hadn't been prepared for that level of pain though, and it was becoming a lot harder to move around and participate in basic life even with the mobility aids that I had. Each time that I left my house for any reason, my foot and ankle and lower leg would hurt intensely for 1 to 2 days after. Leaving the house 2 days in a row that weekend had been a lot, even though it had been just to go to my parents' house. Despite the pain, it was still worth it to have spent all of that time with my family that weekend. Monday, August 26, 2024, day 27 after the surgery. My foot and ankle were more sore than usual from having been out of the house all weekend. Icing my foot was helping less than usual with pain that day. The arch of my foot was feeling very painful. I had started having some midfoot collapse before the surgery, and I was guessing that now that I was healing from the surgery, my foot was getting used to my arch being restored to a better position. The steri strips were finally starting to peel off after having been placed over the scar when the stitches were removed nearly 2 weeks ago. I was so excited to see the edges finally starting to peel upwards. Tuesday, August 27th, 2024, day 28 after the surgery, I had a follow-up appointment with the nurse practitioner at my PCP's office for my migraines. She has been an amazing resource and has figured out the right combination of medications to manage my migraines, and she was also very interested to see how my foot was doing. My mom very kindly drove me to that appointment, since Matt has already been driving me to a lot of my other appointments, and he had already used a lot of his PTO for both his own surgery and for my surgery. On the way home from the appointment, my foot was starting to hurt quite a bit. I sat in the back seat of the car so I could have my foot elevated across the back seat. The arch in my foot and the top of my foot felt really tight, and it also felt like there was a tight band around my toes. The steri strips were starting to peel off more, which was exciting because they'd been pulling more and more on the scar. It had been exactly 2 weeks since the stitches had been removed and the steri strips had been put on over the scar in place of the stitches, so I used the Brava adhesive remover spray that my sister and Helen had given me to remove them that day. I watched a couple of YouTube videos before using the spray, and it ended up being super easy to remove the steri strips. The spray ended up being really helpful, and I honestly could not have imagined taking the steri strips off without the spray. My foot, of course, ended up feeling really sensitive around the scar area once the strips had been taken off, but it also felt like a relief not to have them on anymore. I could actually feel the top of my foot and the arch of my foot start to relax within about 15 minutes of having removed the steri strips and cleaning the scar area with the Vosh solution that Aunt Helen had given me.